This is not a good angle. And it's very noisy outside my house. Let's see here. I'm gonna fix up and stack up some pillows here so you guys can watch me as usual. Just like very last minute setup here. Yeah, I don't normally go live on the weekends, but here we are. Supplemental narrative 77. Susan, thank you for telling me to skip ahead. I've been reading every single document. I'm coming back, by the way, to all of the other documents. Much better. I'm coming back to the other documents. There's still a lot from 42 to basically supplemental narrative 77 that I wanted to go through, but I'm just gonna skip ahead because this is crazy, guys. Welcome. Give it a like, please. If you guys are in here, I don't ask for much. I do ask for likes, and I do ask you to leave a comment, not only in the chat, but also in the comment section, right? Because this is insane. We have a man, we have Brian Koberg, who's been sitting in jail for almost 3 years now. And remember, people were ready to send him off to the firing squad. And every time I pull up a document, again, so many people forget that there are other weird people around the victims that said really weird things, that are talking about, I could have unalived them if I wanted to, talking about following the girls to the Mad Greek from the college. And I'm like, did Moscow PD just decide to shove this under the rug? That's exactly what it's looking like. And it's problematic. So I'm pulling up the document. I promise I will catch up in the chat after. But again, I normally don't come on here on Saturdays. I'm actually barbecuing with the family, and I kind of snuck away for a little bit. So make sure you give it a like, because here I am working on the weekends now, doing this work, right? It's important. So this is what it says. On December 13th, 2022 at approximately 8 p.m., I interviewed SP in Idaho at the blank. P had called me several days to report some information he had regarding the quadruple homicide. I asked P if the information he would be sharing would be dealing with one person. He told me it would. I asked P if I could get the individual's name. P told me the person's name was G, later identified as GM, born in 2003. By the way, the person that gave this interview, of course, all these names are blurred out, but his year of birth is 1953. So this is an older individual. This is an adult coming forward to Moscow PD a whole month after and saying, I should probably share this information. And just so you guys know, the person doing the interview here is James Fry, Chief Fry, right? So he's talking about GM, some young man who was born in 2003. P told me he did not know the individual's last name, but believed he knew where he lived. He told me he lived in the blank apartments. P told me this apartment is just off Block Avenue, then turn onto Linda Lane, and then right onto Blank Street, and the apartment is right across from the blank. P told me G lives in the apartments. So whoever G is somebody living very close to 1122 King Road, I'm going to assume, right? P began explaining to me that he had done a lot of work for DK, who was the prior owner of blank. P told me he'd been a friend of the family for many years and had done handyman jobs in the past for DP. Told me in 2020 he drove D, his daughter L, and G up to a place the family goes to a vacation almost every day. P told me after they got here, R, who is one of D's sisters, got into an altercation with a male who was camped near where they were. So it sounds like G is starting altercations, right? Red flag number one, at least for me. P told me it was a heated argument, but everyone eventually went back to the campsites. P told me later in the evening he noticed R and L were walking past the male's campsite, so he went up on the hill where he could observe and make sure nothing was going to happen. P told me he had been on the hillside for several minutes in the dark when all of a sudden G just appeared out of nowhere. Red flag number two. G starting fights with random people, and now he's kind of creeping up, right? Coming up, appearing in the middle of nowhere behind this grown man who was born in 1953, the same man who's giving the interview. P told me it startled him for a minute because he never heard or saw where G came from. Red flag number two. Red flag number two. He's not only creepy, like, was he watching him? Was he creeping on him? I don't know. P told me G pulled out a knife to show him. Red flag number three. Not only is he creeping, not making a peep, not making a sound, but then he whips out a freaking knife. Put yourself in the shoes of this man. And again, this is an older man, born in 1953. So would that freak you out? You're in the dark, you're up on a hillside, and then somebody just, a young man appears out of nowhere and then pulls out a knife to show you out of the effing blue in the dark. Creepy to me. P told me this was a hunting style knife. P told me he had spoken to G, who had showed a great interest in having a career in the military. I asked P if he could describe the knife to me. P told me it was a typical 7-inch blade hunting skinning knife. P told me he had heard that G's grades in school had dropped and that L had been extremely verbally abusive to him. So red flag number three. Are we on three now or four? I lost track already. A lot of red flags, right? Now grades are coming down. I don't know. That's always that. It's always something that's we need to look at, because usually when grades start coming down, plummeting, and then on top of that there's verbal abuse. Sounds like L is somebody that is related to G, and that verbal abuse is happening in the household. It's a red flag, right? I asked how L and G would travel to Moscow from Boise. P told me he believed they would ride the bus when they traveled. P told me they stayed in Moscow at D's house. G and his sister would stay in the basement, and L would sleep outside or in one of the 2 sheds in the backyard. So it sounds like L is his mom, potentially. L sounds like it's G's mom, right? And then G also has a sister. P told me the significance of this was G would keep his knives in the basement of D's house, in the wood pile that was outside or in one of the 2 sheds in the backyard. Another red flag, in my opinion. Why do you need to keep like a pile of knives wherever you go, right? You're traveling from Moscow to Boise back and forth, but you're keeping a pile of knives in somebody else's house or in a wood pile that is outside or in a shed in the backyard. Like, that's giving some weird vibes. Teresa, we don't know who G is, right? These documents, babe, look. Okay, that's what we are working with. Redacted, redacted, redacted. So you guys can fill in the blanks. G is somebody with a lot of red flags, in my opinion. And just wait till we get to the Mad Greek portion and the things that he's done and said and his connection to the victims, right? P told me at around the end of May or sometime in the middle of June, after COVID was letting up, he was at Mad Greek having a late lunch or early dinner. P told me this was on Saturday or Sunday. P told me he had ordered a glass of wine, which he assured that Ethan brought him. P told me he's not sure if Ethan worked at Mad Greek or was just helping out. P told me a bit later he noticed that G had come into the restaurant. So here we have Ethan. P is ordering a glass of wine again. This is a grown man who's just having, a late lunch or early dinner. And Ethan brings him the glass of wine. Then G walks into Mad Greek. P told me a bit later he noticed that G had come into the restaurant with possibly D, who is G's cousin. So Ethan is the Mad Greek for whatever reason. Was he working there? Was he helping? P doesn't know. But G is going in there to Mad Greek, bringing another cousin. P told me Xana and Madison had gone over to G's table, and Ethan later joined them. So why are Xana and Madison going over to G unless they know him, right? And why is Ethan also going over to the table unless they know him? It sounds like they knew each other. P told me it appeared to be a heated conversation, but he could not tell what it was about. P suspected it may have to do with cancel culture. Here is where it gets a little crazy, because there have been several YouTubers. I know Lana has talked about that in the past, and this really triggered a lot of people. She got so much hate for this, so much hate, because we often speculate in here. So now we have the documents, and it's crazy. Cancel culture, and that G was stirring them up with conservative comments. So it sounds like G went in there with his cousin, went inside Mad Greek to antagonize Xana, Madison, and Ethan. Right? That's what it's sounding like. P told me that G left without eating anything. So he didn't even eat. It sounds like he went in there to antagonize them with conservative comments. What does conservative comments mean? And cancel culture. Later that night, around 9-10 p.m., P was at G's house in the backyard. P said L was extremely drunk as she was yelling at G. Again, more verbal abuse, right? From L, which sounds like L is G's mom, in my opinion. P said she stated, "You were just a loser and you're going to spend your life in jail. You are ruining your life." Maybe she had a reason to say that, right? Maybe. P told me G left right after this altercation and he did not see him again. P said he was not sure what L was referencing when she said this. P told me G goes on long walks and does not return until the early morning hours. Another red flag in my opinion. Here we have this young man who is going to Mad Greek, antagonizing Xana, Madison, Ethan. Not only that, but his life sounds like it's pretty shitty. If L is telling G that your life is shitty, you're just a loser, you're going to end up in jail, you're ruining your life, it's probably for a reason, right? It sounds like a frustrated mother trying to get their son, trying to get their shit together. Like, get your shit together, boy. Right? That's the vibe that I'm picking up. The fact that G goes on long walks and doesn't return until early morning hours is a little bit weird to me. Again, people love to give Brian Koberger shit. They're like, it's weird. He drives at night. He likes to stargaze. That's weird. But here we have this guy who's also going on early morning or long walks and doesn't return until the following morning. Like, right? The bias. People love to talk about bias, but here we can clearly see the bias, because people that have read these documents, I doubt that guilters have read these documents, but if they did, and if we mentioned this, they'd be like, well, it's not Brian, so it doesn't really matter. P told me he was over at D's the next morning picking up some tarps from a job he'd been doing, and G showed up. P told me he asked G what he does after he leaves when his mom is yelling at him. G told him he goes over to the college. P told me G believes the college is to blame for how his mom is. Another red flag. G thinks that his mom is the way she is because the college, meaning he has some hatred potentially or some negative emotion towards the college, right? He says, P explains that L, which in my opinion is G's mom, went to the parties at the college and began drinking, which is why it sounds like she may have a drinking problem. P told me he does not know for sure, but he believes that L may have been raped at one of the college parties. P told me he asked G about the conversation that took place at the Mad Greek restaurant. P said that G told him he had followed the girls. He had followed the girls to the Mad Greek from the college. Here we have somebody, again, who is disappearing at night after he's getting verbally abused by his mother, goes on these nightly walks, doesn't return till the following day, and then is telling another person, this grown man by P, this goes by P in this document, that he follows the girls. He followed the girls. He followed the girls. Okay, a red flag, right? A big fucking red flag. And again, if you're a guilter, I don't know how you can believe that there's no reasonable doubt in this case, because it's obviously all over so many documents that we have already covered, so many people that just reasonable doubt, right? Reasonable doubt. This is where it gets crazy. Was Lana from Truth and Transparency right? Give her a thumbs up if you think she was right, because G told P that the two girls were lesbians. Okay? If you have not watched that video, please go watch that video where Lana spoke about this, right? She had this theory that Kaylee and Maddie were into each other. Just a theory, and again, we have to be very careful how we word this because we don't know. But she did have this theory, and now we have this guy born in 2003 that goes by G, that has all of these red flags that we just discussed, and then is telling a grown man that follow the girls to the Mad Creek from the college and mentioned that the two girls were lesbians, and then told P he had went back to the girls' house, and when they came home, he was inside the house. He was inside the house. Right? So, weird. He was inside the house. Do you know what this means? Like, creepy as fudge. Is this the stalker that we've been hearing about, that several of the girls complained that they've been seeing somebody watching them from the tree line? Is this who the person is? Right? And then this is where it gets extra creepy. And then he made the statement, they had no idea that I was there. I could have killed them all if I wanted to. So here we have G, born in 2003, confessing to P that he followed the girls to Mad Creek from the college. The girls were lesbians. He's mentioned that he was at Mad Creek, took his cousin with him, started shit with Maddie, Xana, and Ethan about conservative statements regarding cancel culture, regarding LGBTQ, and now he's saying that he went inside of the home as well, inside 1122 King Road, and that they didn't even know he was in there, and that he could have unalived them all if he had wanted to. P told me G then went and got a larger knife from out of the back shed and showed him. I don't know how to make it more clear that there is so much reasonable doubt in this case. When we compare Mr. Kohberger to this man, vote. Please vote in the comment section as well as in the chat, but definitely in the comment section because it will promote the channel, it will promote the algorithm. I don't ask for anything, but I do ask you guys vote. I do ask you to like the comment. Leave a 1 if you think that this person is way more suspicious and had more motive to unalive these people, including Ethan. Again, was mentioned that the altercation also involved Ethan. Then Brian Kohberger. Leave a 1, please. Leave a 1 in the chat and leave a 1 in the comment section once this video goes live, right? Or not live, fully, whatever. If you think still that Mr. Kohberger is way more creepy than this G guy who's confessing this to a grown-ass man, well, I'm assuming it's a man, right? It might P, whoever P is, to this grown adult who was born in 1953. If you think Brian is creepy, leave it too. This is mind-blowing. This is mind-blowing. And then we have Judge Hippler saying, yeah, we don't really want to introduce any other potential suspects because it's just going to make everything very messy. We need to allow this to enter. This should have been allowed to enter the court, to enter the trial, to at least have been skimmed by Judge Hippler. But instead, this is what he did. Yeah, I don't really, let's just look at Brian Koberger. This all makes it very confusing. This makes it very confusing. That's crazy. That is crazy, guys. So today's video is going to be pretty short. Again, I have a cookout actually in my backyard that I'm supposed to be at. But I wanted to share that with you. So am I really cracking up? I don't know. That's weird. Maybe it's my phone. I'll take a look into it though. Thank you guys. You guys have a wonderful evening. Make sure to vote. Take care.